Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll talk a lot more Texas football today, wrapping up Wyoming week, getting ready to move on to the Big 12 Conference, wrapping up non-conference play as a whole. We'll get into more Sark audio, more talk about what this Texas team needs to do going forward, what they needed to do, things we can look at about this Texas team, trying to find the identity of this Texas football team and how Sark is calling games in 2023. We'll get a little bit more NFL talk. Go over the games last night. Little MLB before we give you up to the Rangers at 6:30. Don't worry. Rangers not taking over on Wednesday. Rangers not taking over on Thursday. It's an early game tomorrow. They're off on Thursday, so we'll get a couple days with you, but they're taking over at 6:30 today, Rangers pregame. We'll also be covering up anything y'all want to talk about. You know you drive the show. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776. Is the number for the text line where you can text in, let us know what you're thinking. We'll get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll, all that good stuff coming up on the show. I'm your conduit, but you guys are driving. So we'll get to where we're going. Let's start off talking about some Texas football. We're getting a little bit further. We're getting closer to Big 12 conference play. We'll start to get into Baylor a little bit more tomorrow, get more into the plans, what you got to get going forward. I still want to work on a couple things that I'm happy about of conference play and things that I think are positive signs going forward for Texas and things that – because I get Texas is 3-0 for the first time since 2012. We don't want to talk about how the rest of that season went. So we want to go back a few more years, and that's why we want to try and think about some things. We talked yesterday about the leadership on the sideline and how big of a deal that leadership on the sideline is for Texas this season. How big it is for those guys to get pumped up in the last 2 weeks when they really needed it to get going, even against Rice, to kind of pull it together and play better and be a fourth quarter team, be a third quarter team, a fourth quarter team. That's what they've needed to do. But I think one of the big pieces of this team this year, which is something that I'll give credit to Sark, even though he's the offensive guy, he's a head coach, he's stuck with PK. And we've known at Texas there's a lot of pressure on head coaches that when something doesn't work the way it's supposed to, something's got to give. And very rarely do you get to see a coaching staff underperform for 2 seasons, which in Texas standards, which is what they're trying to build back up to, Texas underperformed the last 2 years. Clearly 2 years ago. But last year, even then, it underperformed of what – they didn't underperform for what our expectations were, but for what the standard is at Texas. He was able to keep his staff, able to keep PK, and then not only keep Kwiatkowski, but then bring in a Gary Patterson to help PK take that next step in coaching and help him out with understanding some more of how different teams are coming at him and give him some different looks and different thoughts. All of those things, great things. But what I love is that Sark is starting to embrace that this Texas team needs to really focus and needs the help of this defense. As much as he is a flash guy, and as much as he likes to have the big play, and as much as he likes to be the hero on offense, this Texas defense is what is winning games for Texas right now. Here's what Sark had to say about when he was asked about what the strengths and what he knows about this Texas defense at the presser yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think we're playing together, right? I think our communication is as good as it's been since I've been here, and so that starts with your safeties. That starts with your kind of inside linebackers, making sure everybody's on the same page. And so, for the most part, we don't have catastrophic busts, right? Whether it's in coverage or in the run game. I know the one run spit out the other day. But that was for in my opinion, a variety of things. But I think that communication has been helpful. I think, too, their understanding of why we're calling what we're calling and PK what he's calling and what we're trying to defend. 3, I like the way the effort that we're playing with. I think we are getting to the football. We're populating the ball. We're tackling really well. And ultimately, we're affecting the quarterback. And, in a game that was kind of heavy run driven and the ball getting out of the quarterback's hand, the one time we had an op, Barron Sorrell with a big sack there late in the ball game. So I think all those things add up to we're playing a style of football that's fast, that's aggressive, that's physical, and it's smart. And so if we can keep going down that path, we're going to be okay.
And so that brings us to the word of the day. I know we had one yesterday. We're not going to do a word of the day every day. Don't worry. Word of the day is balance. And balance is what I love what Sark has done in the first 3 games is balance. Is that he's understood this on the offense, we need balance. And on the defense, we need balance. And we need to balance the offense and the defense. We no longer need to play hero ball and try to throw the ball deep over and over again because we have to get that big play or else we're putting our defense in a bad situation. We need to get the ball. We need chunk plays. No, he's figured out. Okay, let's kind of just keep the ball. Let's run a little bit more game clock. Let's try and work with the defense to help make them better. And then on the defensive side of the ball, let's split up our personnel groups. Let's let some guys get some different shots. Let the defense change up what they're doing, change up our looks, change up what we're trying to run. Try and build a good rush defense. Try and build a good run defense and a good pass rush defense. Both those things. And bringing in the talent and then allowing PK to trust PK to know when to take the shots, know when to get the pass rush, and know when to step back and know, okay, look, maybe we're not going to get to the quarterback, but let's go ahead and try and slow them down. Not let them get ahead of us, not let it bust a big play. Let's just step back a little bit and see if we get some natural pressure. Sark talked about his pass rush depth, which helps because the more guys you can have that can rush the ball, the more guys you have on that team that become a threat makes it harder and harder for the offensive line to focus on anybody. It makes it harder and harder for the offense to plan around one of your players. So you need to have as many options as you can. Not only that, it allows you to get natural pressure even better because now you're able to, they don't know where the pass rush may be coming from. And if you put 2 pass rushers out there, then, and you drop them off and you have a third guy now, or you have a Tavondre Sweat or Alfred Collins who comes up the middle, you can make a lot of plays. Here's Sark talking about the pass rush depth for this Texas team.
No, I think it's great. Again, we came into the season like everybody, wondering where were we going to get that pressure from on the quarterback, right? We knew a year ago that we applied pressure on the quarterback, but we didn't get the numbers in getting him on the ground. And I think it's a real credit to Coach Bo and to PK in being creative in their ways to get pressure on the quarterback and trusting the depth that we have on that defensive line. And now to think we're getting it from a variety of people, and whether it's the interior defensive line with Sweat and Murphy and Alfred Collins and Vernon and that crew, or you get to the edge position with Ethan Burke, Baron Sorrell, getting him one the other night. We've been using Chris Ross more. Justice Finkley's been showing up. And then, the utilization of Anthony Hill, that ability to play depth and letting guys rush the passer fresh, I think has been helpful. Where a year ago, some guys were on that field for a lot of snaps, and then it came down to critical third downs, and they just didn't have enough juice in their tank to go to get the quarterback on the ground. There may have been pressure, we couldn't get him on the ground. So now I think we are reaping the benefits of a rotation on the defensive front to apply pressure on the quarterback and ultimately get him on the ground.
And that depth is allowing you to find that balance on defense. Find that balance of getting guys in there where the balance is now there's always energy on the field. And yes, you did let the one big play get around you. I just don't think they were expecting Wyoming to have that much speed, and it was multiple players, 3 or 4 players on that made the wrong play. And that's unacceptable. That has to be fixed. I'm with you. That's terrible. But there's one play of that in the game. And I'm sure there was multiple chances in that game where that could have happened and someone made a bigger play. But the balance, to have everybody have energy, to have guys rotating in and out, to have all of that happening, helps you get that balance on the defensive end. Helps you get the balance where you don't necessarily have to be the most highlight reel defense, the most highlight reel offense in the college football. But you can win games because you're balanced, because you can run the ball and you can pass the ball. Now you can play defense and you can play all styles of defense. Because we talk about the pass rush depth, and we talk about being able to stop on that O-line. And we've seen in 2 games now the run game for the opponents in the first quarter. In the first couple drives, that run game for Alabama, the run game started off insane. And Texas is going to have to shore that up a little bit. It's not a killer, but it's one of the things you'd like to shore up. is that early in games, that interior of the line isn't performing at the level it needs to. That the run defense isn't at full force early in these games. They're going to have to address that. You're going to have to work on that a little bit more, but that's across the board. That the energy on the first quarter doesn't seem to be at the level it needs to be at. It's great it's there in the fourth quarter now. That's fantastic because that's where you're winning games and losing games. But you're also losing games in the first quarter. You'll lose a game any quarter of the game. You can win games in the fourth quarter, but you can lose them anywhere. So you need to get that energy up in those. But it's not just that there's a defensive line depth. It's not just that you're starting to get some other players. You're starting to get players that haven't performed at that level for the last couple of years, and you're starting to evolve those players. And that's helping you out. Getting a Barron Sorrell. You talk about the defense where he's made some key plays in that game. And he's starting to step up, and he's starting to be a leader. He's starting to step up. Barron Sorrell. Here's start talking about Barron Sorrell and his growth and the Texas defense.
What Barron did is one, he really physically changed his body. He really attacked the weight room a year ago. And that helped him last year as a sophomore, play good football. Had 5.5 sacks, had some really good games along the way. But like anything now going into year 3, more physically mature, more mentally mature, really approaching the game, understanding the game plan. And naturally, when other guys along that front are kind of getting their shine in the first couple weeks, you can possibly have a tendency to press. I got to go make that sack. I got to go make that play. And then you get out of the scheme and you're cutting a quarterback loose when you're supposed to be the contained rusher. And so I think the credit for Barron is last week he played within the scheme and he made his plays. And so he's more than capable to be a really good every down player for us at that position. He did it a year ago, and I thought, Saturday was arguably his best ball game that way, to where it was a complete game and he got the stat sheet filled up a little more than he had the first 2 weeks.
So there you go. That Barron Sorrell. We're going to get to Jahdae Barron in just a second. Barron Sorrell, you see that depth that now they're starting to develop players, something that Texas has not done in a while. But it's all part of Sark. Hey, let's not focus where so many programs focus on a couple of 5-stars, and they want everybody else to catch up. And you plan everything for the heroes and not for the balance of the team. You plan everything on, if we have Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers, we'll win all the games. Everybody else will catch up. If we have DeMarvion Overshawn, now we got an Anthony Hill, we can pull those guys up. We can get some of those big plays. Then you know what? Everybody else will fall in line. Everybody else will fall in line behind them. That's not the right way to coach. You need the balance. You need all of these guys to feel like they're part of it. All these guys need to be part of it. We just said Jahdae Barron. We just said him accidentally, but we'll talk about Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron is one of the guys that is being a huge step up in letting this secondary let the defensive line get the pressure. Let the defensive line be able to do what they need to do and switch out and have different guys get in there. Malik Muhammad has been playing really well. We'll call him Manny Muhammad. Manny Muhammad has been playing really well. We know Jerrin Thompson. He's got blown off a couple times where he's made the wrong read and you let a guy get behind him. He's got to fix that. Anthony Hill has let a couple guys get behind him. He needs to fix that. But guys like Jahdae Barron are staying where they need to be. So they're making plays. They're getting past breakups. They're doing those things. They may not be making the biggest highlight plays, but you need those guys, because those guys are the guys that are making sure nothing slips out the back end. They're the guys making it so you don't throw that way. They're the guys making you get an extra, second or two to get that sack or get the ball thrown away. All of that is guys like Jahdae Barron. Here's Stark talking about Jahdae Barron yesterday.
So on defense, Jahdae's kind of the glue over there for us right now, because he does a really good job of tying the front and the back end together. Jalen obviously does it from the backer position, but Jahdae does it at that star position because he's in and around the box in the run game. We're asking him to play in coverage and zone coverage and man coverage, and he gets some tough matchups in the slot. But his ability to, one of the higher football IQs on our team, and his ability to diagnose what's coming and then trust his instincts and go make plays really shines through. It's not by chance. It's not by luck that he makes plays. He does his studying. He has prepared for the ball game. And then when he sees something and he knows it, he goes for it. He cuts it loose. And in turn, he makes some really big plays for us, and he does it with a really physical nature.
And that's another part. we talk about balance. Balance within his game. That Jahdae Barron has found balance in his game to understand these are the plays where I can go take a shot, and these are the plays where I need to be respectful, and this is somebody else's turn, and I need to do this because we can't allow a big play. That balance in everything. That balance in everything is a thing that I think is a huge difference between last year and the year before Texas team and this Sark team. And I think Sark's leading the way with his play calling, with the attitude he's had in this offseason, that there's a balance that I feel hasn't been there before. Now, is he going to stay through Big 12? We got to wait to see that. But I think there hasn't been any real need for hero ball. And without the push for hero ball, and some of that credit goes to Quinn Ewers for not trying to be the hero, for not trying to stick out and be the guy. So once you take away that hero ball mentality and you say everyone is here, there is no hero. We're an army. There's no superheroes. We're an army coming at you. And we're going to win. Then you don't have to rely. You feel more confident when you get into the fourth quarter. You are no longer relying on hope and wishes when you get in the fourth quarter and you're tired because you've been trying your hardest to be Superman for 3 quarters, and when it doesn't work, you feel like you're beating your head in the wall. You go, okay, well, we've won some, we've lost some, but now here we go. I'm still feeling fresh. These guys have tried to be superheroes for the last 3 quarters, and they're dead because we're better than them. Here's Sark talking about fourth quarter performance. And this is where Texas needs to improve going forward, because fourth quarter is great. Fourth quarter performance has been awesome, but it's not everything. Here's Sark talking about the fourth quarter performance.
I think it definitely changes mentality, right? I think, first of all, when something doesn't go your way in a specific way, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, all of a sudden, is this a habit? And when it pops up, that's when you can get the, oh no, here we go again. And that's when you can, the white knuckles start kicking in, and oh, I hope somebody else makes this play, and you start, all those things are real, right? That's human nature, that's psyche. But it goes the other way too. So now we've gone 2 straight games where we have seen really critical plays being made in a positive way for us. We have seen playmakers step up to change the game. And now it's like, man, I hope I get my chance, right? I hope I can kind of join this party and be that guy to go make that play. So, psyche is psyche. There's individual psyche, there's team psyche. But I think our psyche right now is there's a real level of belief that if we can just stay the course, keep trying to execute, keep playing our style of football, that good things will happen. And in turn they have. It's been 2 weeks in a row where our best football we have played in the fourth quarter and in all 3 phases. It hasn't just been one phase. And so I do think it's a psyche thing. That's a belief thing. And now hopefully we can continue to capitalize on that and have some, build that belief and that trust that no matter what the score is, just keep playing and good things will happen.
So that's great. Fourth quarter performance, having that psyche, that's great. It is a great thing to understand that this team has the ability. And now no matter what game you're in or what position, whether it's injury or weather or, maybe there is a game where you get a couple of calls that don't go your way. And when you get those couple of calls, you look the other, you start to get on yourself and you have to turn it around and you have to step back and you have to figure out what you're going to do. You have to kind of take it upon yourself to make that change. Are you going to be able to do that? And now having these fourth quarter performances will make you a lot closer to believing you could do that. That will make you feel a lot better about being able to do that. However, that being said, you need the balance. You need the balance. Because if you're only a fourth quarter team, it's going to wear on you by the end of the season. It's going to wear on you, and other teams are going to start coming at you and find your first quarter difficulties and find your weaknesses. So you need to start building up ways to get around it. I think this team is getting there. I think this coaching staff is working about it. Here's Sark talking about running the ball instead of taking shots, even though we know he wants to take shots and that he needs to find that he's trying to find that balance and realizing what's working and what's not. Here's Sark talking about kind of taking what you have to take in games as opposed to doing what he naturally, and we all know he wants to do.
You try to play the mind game of anticipation of what you think the call is going to be from the defense. And, if they're intent on trying to keep the ball in front and they're not going to put an extra hat in the box, we have to have the ability to run it. And I have to give our players the confidence that they can run it. And that was something that was a point of emphasis going into the game last week. And we followed through with that. Naturally, I looked to the drive in the third quarter. I touched on this after the game. We got the ball to start the second half. We had driven the ball into the high red zone, and I kind of called a screen and go there to Gunnar Helm that eventually fell incomplete. And sure enough, we're in a 3rd and long. We get sacked and we knock ourselves out of field goal range. So as a coach, you have to self-evaluate too, just like I asked the players to, and how do we improve? And I have to make sure I'm dialed into the game plan too, and not, feel like, man, we finally got to get something here and get something going. And so we ran the ball well. Every game is different, and we'll just have to call it accordingly to how this game goes. I'd say for JB, it was a really cool game for him. Coming into the season and Cedric kind of being that lead back for the first 2 games, and then Cedric getting hurt against Alabama in the 4th quarter. Who finished that game was Jonathan Brooks, right? Who was carrying that ball at the end to close that game out. I think instilled a lot of confidence in him. And then coming back Saturday night, when CJ couldn't go and JB knew he was going to kind of be the bell cow for us, I think he had that confidence from the week before that he could, and it showed up. I thought he played really good football for us Saturday night. He feels great today. It's different when you're carrying the ball that many times. How'd he feel Monday morning? Felt good today. So it's comforting to know that we have that in him and what he's capable of.
So that's the reality. That is a difference for Sark. Is you knew you had Bijan and Roschon, and sometimes you relied on them and you fell back on them, but you kind of use them as the superhero guy. You use them as get out of jail free card. With Jonathan Brooks, you're not doing that. Now, he's helped you out in those last couple games. But he's not now we're down 14 because what I wanted to do didn't work. So now let's just give the ball to Bijan and hope he can all of a sudden save the team. That doesn't seem to be the mentality anymore. The mentality seems to be, let's try and balance everything we're doing. Let's try and give take what the defense is giving us. Let's work within our means. If Quinn's throwing the ball well, let's go to Quinn. If we need to run a little bit more clock, let our defense get some rest. Let's get the ball to JB. Let's get the ball to CJ Baxter. Those types of things, that balance is going to be a difference this year. If he can continue to take what the defense is giving him in the Big 12, not overforce Quinn Ewers' hand, not overforce trying to run the ball down someone's throat when they're allowing you to start passing the ball. When they're stopping everything deep and stopping everything on the line and there's all in the middle, take what's in the middle. There's a whole lot of different passing game. If they start playing you too much and start bumping you on the outsides, throw it to JT Sanders over the middle. You have the weapons. Texas has all the weapons, and now the coaching staff seems to be on the same page, defensively, offensively, for this balance, to bring an attack that is going to be difficult for anyone to stop for 4 quarters. Then Texas has the advantage in all of their games in the Big 12 right now. Which leads us to Patrick's Big Fat Poll today.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
Join the conversation. 512-337-3776 is the text line. You just got to send in a text. We'll read it. We'll get into that. 512-337-3776. We'll get to that. We'll read some of your texts. We keep coming up, and we want to ask you the Big Fat Poll today. Today, we asked you who was the MVP yesterday. You said Jonathan Brooks. I could agree with that. He had a great game. When you look at whoever else was rushing in that game, if he wasn't there with CJ Baxter out, that could have been a different game. That could have been a lot scarier of a game if you didn't have JB in that game. So I'll give you. I'm okay with that one. Today's question. We're now through. We're 3-0 for the first time since 2012. We don't want to mention how the rest of that season went. The rest of the season didn't go great. Didn't get us where we wanted to be. If the rest of the season goes like it did in 2012, there's going to be problems for Sark. I don't think it will. And we're going to win more games than that. So now the question is, for you on the text line, 512-337-3776, how many games does Texas lose this season? Regular season. So I don't want you to add in a loss in the playoffs or add in a Big 12 championship loss. If that's how you feel, that's great. I love that you have them there. But I know after the Alabama game, everyone had them undefeated. And I know after the Wyoming game on Monday, some of y'all had them with 4 or 5 loss team. So I want to know, look through your schedules, figure out who you think we're losing to. I'd love to know who you think we're going to lose to. Text that in. If you got the time, text me why you think we're going to lose to them. But how many losses you think Texas is going to have this season? They drop one more. You worry about the Oklahoma game, maybe there's a trap game in there. K-State, they get better as the season goes on. We know they lost to Missouri, but you know what? They come back. You know, if they get healthy, they come back at you. Play one of these new teams, a BYU, a Houston, somebody we're not as familiar with. They sneak up on you, have a bad game, go into Iowa State, maybe get some weather. Wherever you might be going, you get some weather, whatever it is. Kansas looking good this year. How many losses? How many losses do you put on Texas in this regular season? 512-337-3776. Send in the text there. And whatever you want to talk about, whatever your thoughts are on Texas football, we'll get into all of that. All of your texts, we want to read them. You guys drive the show here. The text line drives the show. So tell us what you want to talk about, what your viewpoints are, how you're feeling on a Tuesday. It's your Monday. If you got it out of your system, you're feeling a little bit better, let us know. 512-337-3776 on the text line. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Cowboys. We'll talk a little bit about that defense, play something from Ian Rob B, talk a little bit of NFL before we get back, and we'll talk some Texas football, and we'll get into a little NFL and all of that and all your text, all of that. When we come back here on here we come back on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hey guys, I want to tell you about our friends with Brain Vault, Dr. Greg Eckert and Brain Vault. Brain Vault is a sports science technology founded locally right here in Austin, Texas. It's a patented technology based on proven science delivered through a mouth guard to help reduce the risk of concussion, a cool new way to think about things, a different look at it. Brain Vault has used their technology for the past 8 years with roughly 100 NFL players with no concussions reported. Brain Vault has now brought their technology used in NFL in a retail version so your sons and daughters can have the same level of protection the NFL players have experienced. Brain Vault is now widely used at the college and high school and middle school levels. Many of our Texas high school and college football players have been wearing the Brain Vault custom mouth guard for the past 2 seasons, and now again this season with tremendous results. They have raved over the fit, the comfort, and protection from their Brain Vault custom mouth guards. Many athletes continue to wear their Brain Vault mouth guard in their other high school and middle school sports, such as lacrosse, rugby, soccer, basketball, baseball, and cheerleading. And guess what? The parents love that the Brain Vault mouth guard can be worn in all sports, and now their athletes receive that protection throughout their athletic career. I know a lot of you guys out there are, when you were kids, we played a ton of sports. I played in everything. I probably should have used it when I was doing some other sports as well, playing in the yard. And, if you're a parent that wants to look into this, their Brain Vault is currently conducting team and group fittings for college, high school, and middle school athletes in Central Texas. If you're a coach, trainer, booster club member, team parent, visit brainvault.com for more information to set up your team or group fittings today. You can visit brainvault.com and join the movement. It's safe, comfortable mouth guards. It's an awesome custom fit. The people that are doing this really want to help out. It's a different solution. Anything you can do to help out the brain health by helping out your mouth health. It's a cool thing. I support the people over at Brain Vault, and I hope you do too. Brainvault.com. Join the movement. Back on the Sports Complex here on a Tuesday afternoon, playing songs about big things, big shots, because the Big 12 conference play is coming up this week here on the Horn. We're excited about Big 12 conference play, so keeping it big. Love the text. Keep them rolling in. We're going to get to them in just a minute. 512-337-3776. How many losses will Texas have this regular season? I would love you to tell me who they're going to lose to. Would love you to tell me why you think they're going to lose those games. But just tell me how many losses you think they're going to have this season. Regular season. Count regular season. That's what I'm going for. If you got anything else you want to talk about, Texas football, Cowboys, whatever, send it on the text line. We'll talk about it. You guys drive the show here on the Sports Complex. Do want to get over to a little NFL talk in the Cowboys. My man Rob Babers, Aaron Hogan, we're talking about how dominant the Cowboys defense is. It is hard to go into when you put in the numbers. Who better to put in the numbers than Rob Babers? This Cowboys defense, can they be elite this year? Can they become a all-time elite defense? They have played two teams. One lost their starting quarterback. The other has had problems before. So we don't know. We don't know if this is kind of they're going to be. We know they're going to be good, but are they going to be the elite of elite? Do they fix that secondary enough? Micah Parsons is Micah Parsons. Can they be an elite defense? Here's Ian Robbie this morning talking about the Cowboys defense, and can they be an elite one this season?
All right, I want to talk about this Dallas Cowboys defense just a little bit because I think what sets them apart from the other two teams you mentioned there, Philadelphia and San Fran, which also have great defenses and elite, you can consider elite D-lines and front sevens, 49ers and the Eagles. You can throw the Cowboys in there too with Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence and the way they're playing. But the secondary for the Cowboys, I think, sets them apart from those other defenses. By the way, the Cowboys, it's only 2 weeks, so small sample size. Lead the NFL in sacks, pressure rate, takeaways, total defense, and scoring defense.
Gosh.
So they are right now the best defense in the league statistically. There is no question. You can talk about the opponents they face and all that, but it's still a very small sample size. I think they're going to continue to trend as the best defense in the league. But it's the secondary that really has taken their game to a level. And by the way, secondary doesn't have Donovan Wilson. They're missing one of their starting safeties, those three safeties that the Cowboys like to play. How about this stat for Trevon Diggs? And I know he's been a very polarizing player because he's a high risk, high reward player, but last season he lowered a lot of that risk and kept the reward relatively high, and he's getting some more consistency in his game, stabilizing his game so that he's not such a volatile player, but he is arguably the best ball-hawking defensive back in the league. Through 2 games, the passer rating when targeting Trevon Diggs is 1.0. The passer rating when you throw the ball at the dirt every play is like 39. So you actually have, as a quarterback, all right, you have a better chance at success throwing the ball at the dirt than throwing at Trevon Diggs.
Yeah.
That's how good he's been. Versus the Jets, he had a 5 targets, 0 receptions allowed, 1 interception, 2 forced incompletions, a 0.0 passer rating allowed. Remember, I told you guys this. Remember, when he was at Alabama, he basically had only played the cornerback position exclusively. So when we first got there, he was playing wide receiver and safety, and they were playing him all over the place. And then he played it exclusively his sophomore year. Believe he had a competition, ended up getting benched at one point. He also had an injury the next season. And so his rookie year in the NFL, you look at it, was probably his second or third year being able to play the cornerback position exclusively for an entire season. Because he was an athlete coming in, and because of the circumstance, wasn't able to really complete a season and get those valuable reps. And now in the NFL, this is his fourth season in the NFL. He's been playing the cornerback position exclusively for probably about 7, maybe going on 8 years now. Yeah. And I think the light's starting to click for him. The light's starting to go off that he knows how to play the position with great technique and fundamentals, which help as fail safes within this game. He can still now go after the ball, take those chances that he did when he was a younger player, but he's lowered the risk in his game by keeping the reward really high. That's been huge for them early on. Also, Deron Bland has continued to play really well. He's got the third lowest passer rating allowed in the NFL for any defensive backs. Trevon Diggs has the lowest, of course. It's 1.0. So you can't get better than that.
Well,
Deron Bland is 16.7. So the secondary, I don't think we're giving enough credit. Obviously, Micah Parsons is the best defensive player right now on the planet. Defensively, he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. But that secondary has taken their game to a new level, and it's because of Stephon Gilmore as well out there at that corner. He's another big part of why this secondary could be considered the best in the league right now.
Yeah, and the defense. Look, I mean, aside from the Garrett Wilson touchdown catch on Sunday, I mean, this team has played almost 2 perfect games. I mean, I don't know they've played and faced Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson, and they'll be tested further at the quarterback position. But 40-0, and then if you take away the Garrett Wilson touchdown, that's a 30-3 beatdown. So one play that a defense an offense has made against them. The other part of the Cowboys win that we didn't talk probably enough about yesterday because we were talking about so much Longhorns and the win over Wyoming. Dak Prescott completed his first 13 passes on Sunday. They controlled the ball for 42 minutes. This was the recipe, right? Control the football, keep your defense fresh, and let them attack. And yes, with the addition of Stephon Gilmore to go with Trevon Diggs and those safeties, that's one of the best, if not the best, secondary in the league. To go with one of the best pass rushes, if not the best pass rush in the league. And that's why they've been so overwhelming so far. The real test for the Cowboys will come, I think, 3 weeks from now when they play San Francisco. San Francisco. We'll see the Cowboys play at Arizona this week. They're confident that Tyler Smith, the left guard, will play in this game. I think he's going to be back on their offensive line, which bolsters their O-line. But they'll overwhelm Arizona, much like they've done for the first 2 opponents. Then they play New England at home. And then they go to San Francisco, week 5. That's obviously a huge game, to say the least. But the Cowboys have been, we kind of chuckle about Mike McCarthy a lot of times. They've been outstanding through 2 games. There's not been a team that has been as well coached and as well prepared for 2 weeks than the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree with you. And nobody's been as dominant as the Cowboys. And it is because the Cowboys decided, and as an organization, I think it was smart. There are 2 ways to win a Super Bowl in the modern era: elite quarterback play or elite defense / elite pass rush. That's just it. If you go, and now there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, you got to have 1 or 2 of those things. And the Cowboys, I figured out defensively with Dan Quinn and all these weapons, they were probably closer to being a model that wins with elite pass rush and defense than they were with an elite quarterback. So instead of being a Dak-oriented team, they had to make the offense Dak-friendly, but this is a defensive-oriented team. Like, they're going to win with that defense. That's what's elite about this Cowboys team. I'm not saying that the offense isn't going to score a lot of points and situationally improve, but there is no doubt this defense has a chance to be not only the best defense in the league, but special. Micah Parsons is his 2+ sacks in the game versus the Jets, and he'll probably get 2 more sacks next week coming up versus the Cardinals. Gives him 10 games in his career out of 35 with at least 2 sacks. That is the highest rate, 28.6 in NFL history. Reggie White is second. He's only at 21.6. So we haven't had a player on this type of pace in multi-sack games since Reggie White, and he's actually way far in surpassing Reggie White's pace, which that I don't think that's hard to even say. Passing Reggie White's pace, but that's what kind of freakish talent that Micah Parsons is. And by the way, DeMarcus Lawrence having a great season, and nobody's talking about it. Great season.
He is.
He's number 1 among edge rushers in run defense grade by Pro Football Focus. And he also is doing pretty good rushing the passer. His pass rush grade was 84. He had a tackle for loss. He played really well, and he's playing really well, but man, Micah's just on another planet right now.
Well, and as I keep saying, you hear the players talking about it. They want to be considered one of the greatest defenses in the history of the NFL. That's their mission that they're on, right? Mike has talked about it. You heard DeMarcus Lawrence say it after the game this week. And again, without the Garrett Wilson 68-yard touchdown that he caught on Sunday, the Cowboys, if you remove that play, in 2 games, 2 NFL games, Rod, where parity is the build, they would have outscored their opponents 70-3 and allowed an average of 160 yards per game. They haven't.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, I'm with you. I didn't think they'd be this good. I thought they'd be the best defense in the league. They look better than I thought.
Yeah, me too. They're so fast, and so they play downhill and aggressive. And now that they can cover in the back end to match up with that pass rush, it's pretty tough for defenses, to say the least. Can you guys talk about the Cowboys? 4 red zone trips, only 12 points, and no play action passes. I'm still worried. Well, look, they have 70 points in 2 games, so that's the most in the league. They've outscored everybody in the league. So, yes, the red zone situation is something you work on. Tony Pollard took 25 carries on Sunday, and he handled that pounding. So, yes, much like the Longhorns, it's not been perfect on offense, but the defense has been so good, it hasn't mattered. And that will be tested as the season goes.
Just for the texter, though, prior to last night's games, I believe they were 6th in play action pass rate. But yeah, you're right. Situationally in the red zone, that's what you're talking about. That's another example altogether.
Well, and your kicker, who was a problem last year, has been great. He made 5 field goals on Sunday for the Cowboys.
Can the Dallas Cowboys be an elite defense? I think they can. I think the way this defense is played is not going to go downhill. We're going to talk some more NFL in the 6 o'clock hour, a little bit more college football in the 6 o'clock hour, and get into your text here when we get back on the break. 512-337-3776. How many losses will Texas have in the regular season? Send that in. We'd love to know who you think they're going to lose to. We'd love to know why you think you do. I love the texts you get to that have already been in. We're going to get to all of those. 512-337-3776. Send those in. How many losses will be on the Longhorns in their regular schedule? We're going to take one more break before we get to the 6 o'clock hour, and we'll be right back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back in the sports complex here on the Horn. Get into some of your text. 512-337-3776. We'll read them here. We'll read them when we come back at the top of the hour. 512-337-3776. We're asking for the big fat poll of the day. How many losses will Texas have this regular season? Anything else y'all want to talk about? We'll get to as much as we can. By the way, the musical theme this week is Big. Some Big Log from Robert Plant. If you did not get the reference there, this is Big Log from Robert Plant. All songs are about being big or big things or whatever big, because we're getting into Big 12 conference plays. The musical theme of the week. You got any of those? Send those in too. If you know some big songs. Maybe you'll guess one of the ones I'm playing. I'm not going to read them on the air. I'm going to see if I surprise you with them. Let's get to the text line. Blind Longhorn fan says they're not utilizing all of their receivers enough. He is just sticking with the main three and not rotating them. I think that he's trying to use Jay Wood a little bit more, but as far as getting into Jonte Cook and Niblett and some of the younger guys on this team, I don't think he's ever really going to go that far into it. I'd like to see him, throw a couple other passes. I would have liked to see him go to Nayor a little bit more in that game. I think if Texas had not played as bad as they did in the first half and Quinn Ewers was more on, they would have gone to him more. But he's going to the guys he trusts. We've seen the guys he trusts are dropping passes. And we know last year when he would try and go, and we would say to go to somebody else on this Texas team, he ended up going to too many players that drop big plays. And you can get them open because people think that they're open. But if you're going to catch, if your catch rate is 50% at best with a lot of these guys right now, I think that's the reason why you're not going to see a ton of plays. You're going to try and get the guys who are in rhythm and feeling it, and he knows he can trust. Because you can't have a fumble. You cannot have a tip ball to a defender. You can't have a guy give up on a route and let it be an easy pick for a safety. I think that's why he's more about safety. That's why Jonathan Brooks was a backup running back. I don't think he felt comfortable with Jonathan Brooks until this week. He felt more comfortable with C.J. Baxter. He wants to feel safe with him in there. He can't have turnovers. We have this one, Baylor, and 3 losses. 3 losses in the rest of this season. I feel like that might be a little high for me. 3. I'm concerned with OU, KSU, and BYU and 2 losses. 2 losses is reasonable. I don't think they're going to have 2 losses. I'm still a little bit on the Kool-Aid. I think there's a lot of good things that have been happening. I'm not as upset about the Wyoming game as some other people are. I think it's a good learning experience. And a big test will be in Baylor this week. We'll know a ton more when we have a team that we have a little bit better gauge on what they are this season once we get into the Big 12. We know where the baseline is of some of these teams. But we get 2 losses there, so we got a 3 and a 2. Dwight Rabbit with Texas loses no regular season games. I like it. Still drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm with you, Dwight. I appreciate that one. Not going to drop a game in the regular season. Big 12 championship and bowl playoff is anyone's guess. Hard to beat a team 2 times as Big 12 championship is always tough. Yeah, I agree. Try and beat a team twice. You may not have to beat a team twice this year. This is the first year. There's more teams than you don't play everybody. So you technically could play somebody else. Your odds would be right now that you'd be Texas, Oklahoma again. That would be your odds-on favorite to be happening. And it's really, really hard to beat Oklahoma twice in a season. So I get where that would be scary. 1 loss to Oklahoma. You can. I'm not as scared of Oklahoma right now. I think that they're not as prepared for the Big 12 schedule as we are. You schedule these games so far out, you don't think that Rice and Wyoming are going to be pretty legitimate, contenders. That's a team that if they're not as veteran this year and maybe one of the guys transfers out and they don't have necessarily the players they think they're going to have, that this game, if they don't have that defense for Wyoming in that first half where they had 10 returning starters and they're able to give some different looks, then this game turns out way different. If Rice doesn't come out with some veteran players, then we probably win that Rice game right there. And we also didn't prepare for Rice. We just didn't. I think that Oklahoma's kind of played some patsies. They've been going hard at it. They want to be showing off because they want to get back in those polls and in the conversation. I get it. Venables really, he was for a second-year coach was very much on the hot seat for a second-year coach, which is never what you want to see. Trick question. No losses. They lose to Michigan in the playoff. Hoping Michigan fixes that problem they had. She lost to TCU last year, right? TCU? Is that what I'm thinking? Oh, come on, guys. I get it. Once you get to the playoff, that's a big one. I have a good friend who is a big TCU fan or a big Michigan fan, and he's not thrilled that Texas is trying to be good this year too. He said, "This is our year. You can have next year." Longhorns and Cowboys 0 losses. I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are going to lose some games I don't think they're going to go undefeated. But you know what? I love the confidence. Undefeated if Alabama can't beat us, no one can. Not a great attitude for this Texas team, but I like it as a fan. I like it as a fan, but not a great attitude as the team has that. It's going to be difficult. Big 12 is going to be difficult. Zip 0, nada, nil. I have a 5-gallon jug of orange Kool-Aid. I'm a fan of these guys drinking the orange Kool-Aid. We're going to take one more break before we get to the end of the show. We're out at 6:30. There's more text coming in. 512-337-3776 is the text line. Text it in. Let us know how many losses Texas is going to have in the regular season. They're 3-0 for the first time since 2012. We know that season didn't end the way we wanted after being 3-0. I think we've beaten 3 much, much better teams this year than the 3 that they played that year. So I'm going to say I think we're doing good. We're doing good. We're on the right path. We just got to keep it rolling. But send in those texts. 512-337-3776. How many losses will Texas have this regular season? Anything else y'all want to talk about? Keeping the discussion going here on the sports complex. We will keep it rolling. We're going to talk a little NFL when we get back. More of your text, more college football, all of that before we give you up to the Rangers at 6:30. Right here on the sports complex on the Horn 1019 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 on the Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. Some more of your texts, 512-337-3776. We try and get to every text we can here on the show, so send those in, 512-337-3776. We're asking you how many losses will Texas have this regular season. Also going to get into a little NFL, talk about last night's game and a trend in the first couple of weeks, something to look out for, how related back to Texas football, and get you ready for MLB. Rangers taking over at 6:30 doing pregame. Another big game against the Red Sox tonight. Astros lost last night. Rangers lost last night. Mariners won last night. Means the Rangers and Mariners now tied at 1.5 games back from the Astros for the AL West lead. That wild card spot is up in the air as well. So another big thing there for the Astros and Rangers to be looking at. Rangers also, that Red Sox series is big because the Red Sox, as much as they're not doing well, are kind of trying to hop into that wild card as well. I don't know how far out they are, but that you're trying to keep guys out of that wild card now. You want to keep that second wild card spot, so you got to fight for that one. Even if you don't win the AL West, you kind of got to find something to get into. Eovaldi on the mound tonight for the Rangers, Hunter Brown on the mound for the Astros, and Luis Castillo on the mound for the Mariners. But the Astros and Rangers are playing decent teams tonight, and the Mariners are playing the A's. So Astros and Rangers need to step it up, or else the A's can try and get ahead of them tonight and move ahead in that schedule and try and make up another game on the Astros. They'll be taking over at 6:30. Let's get back to the text line real quick. You guys keep sending in, 512-337-3776. When's the last time UT put 73 on anyone? That's their killer mentality. You know, I get in the OU, they put up 63 and 76. They put up a bunch of points. They went for it. That you want Texas to be a little bit more. You know what? That doesn't mean anything to me. That you beat up on Tulsa and you beat up on Arkansas State. You know what? You did good. That's what you need to do. If you're Brent Venables, you need to go and do it. I'm not saying it's more impressive what Texas did, because that's not true either by any stretch of the imagination. It's not true to, be close enough. And you're still 21-point win over Wyoming. But, I think that, and you schedule these games far enough out. I'm not trying to take a shot at Oklahoma, but I'm just saying that doesn't worry me as much, because they go, well, how much are you tested? That SMU game tested you. You didn't look great in that. You won that one by 17, but in all reality, you shouldn't have. You got a late turnover. That should have been a one-score game. That could have easily been a one-score game against SMU. So the one game you played against a decent opponent was actually a close game. So I'm not as worried about that game, and not as worried about Sark or about Oklahoma and what that goes. And as far as Texas not blowing teams out, good. Balance. Just win the games. Go ahead and move forward. Don't try and get cute. And all of a sudden you throw another touch. You throw an interception. You start to mess up Quinn. You start to seep into his mind. He starts to get his bad habits back because you're putting the ball up and you're missing plays. Those types of things, I don't want to see that. So I'm fine with being a balanced team that is winning football games. I don't need to see him, score 70 points. Would I have loved it? Yeah, because if he's doing it the right way, great. But I'd rather him play the right way, win the games, than try and go over the top. And in that Wyoming game, at the end of the game, instead of running Jonathan Brooks over and over again and just winning the game, to start airing the ball out and risking and honestly, they should have scored another touchdown, if not two. If Jaden Blue doesn't fumble the football, they score another touchdown easy in that game, and they win by 4 touchdowns. I don't need to see 70. I'd love to see it. Would love to see it. Don't need to. K-State just lost to Mizzou. Not worried about them anymore. Look, K-State's going to get better. They're a team that progresses. They do not regress. They progress throughout the season. That's why they were able to play TCU so well in the championship game. They're just a better team as the season goes on, historically. That game, they made some real big mistakes that they're going to have to shore up. 0 losses. 0 losses in blowout OU twice in 1 year. I love it. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of anybody with the Kool-Aid. I'm a fan of it. And Nate, I can't read your things, Nate. I can't read any of the things you type in here. They're too dirty. I appreciate you texting in though, Nate. Here's something to do with your big theme. Alabama is the biggest zero lines in the country, ranging from 360 to 320, and yet they can't protect the quarterback and open up holes for the run. That is Bruce, my buddy Bruce from Vallejo, talking about some Alabama football and that they are big. And yeah, no, look, Alabama's O-line. Look, the reality of Alabama, if you want to get on to Texas fans, saying that Alabama's not as good, they don't have a quarterback, which we told you at the beginning of the season. Milroe is their best quarterback. And they played two other scrubs that Tommy Rees wanted to bring in. They don't have there's a reason Milroe beat him out, and he's not a great quarterback. You got to have a good quarterback in today's game. They just don't have one. They're a good team. The defense is really good. I appreciate it, Nate. I appreciate it. We'll go over the couple games, and I want to tell you the trend I've seen that ties back into Texas. Saints, of course, beat the Panthers 20-17. We knew it was going to be close. There was a flurry of scoring at the end of the game. It was pretty much a very low-scoring, pretty boring game. Once the Saints get Kamara back, this team will be okay. I think they will probably win the division, but, the Falcons are going to give them trouble. But Panthers are going to have similar problems to the Texans that until you can run the ball, you're going to have issues. We're going to get into that in a second. Browns and Steelers. Now, this is a weird game because this goes against what you're thinking. The Steelers basically come out of this. Deshaun Watson can't throw the ball, so they run the ball, but they run the ball well. Nick Chubb gets hurt. They still run the ball well. But the Steelers get two big, costly turnovers. They get 4 turnovers completely, but they win the turnover margin by 2, and 2 of those turn into touchdowns. It gives the Steelers a win. It's a defensive win, clearly, for the Steelers. The Steelers want a new offense. They don't want Matt Canada anymore, and I get it. And I'll tell you what Matt Canada is doing that I don't like. I'll tell you why the problem the Panthers are going to have this season, the problem the Texans are having this season. And this is a thing that NFL teams and teams that are young and certain coaches have a hard time figuring out, but the ones that have success know. It's that you have to be able to run the ball in the NFL. You have to be able to run the ball in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying you have to run the ball all the time. I'm not saying you have to run the ball an insane amount of times. You have to be a run-based team. You don't have to do that. But you have to be able to run the ball. So we're through 2 weeks now. And if you're looking at the record of teams with more rushing attempts than the other team through 2 weeks. So they have more rushing attempts than their opponents. Those teams are 26-6. I'm going to tell you, I understand that there is a big caveat on all this, that winning teams will, if you're playing that kind of way, that you're probably going to have more runs than the other team because they're trying to catch up at the end of the game and you're already ahead. So you're going to try and run at the clock. You're going to have more runs. Now, some of these are closer. Some of these are 5 or 6 runs difference, a couple runs difference. I can tell you Tampa Bay and Miami both won their games. Both were tied in carries. I didn't put them in they tied the amount of carries and rushes they had. So there's some games where that doesn't matter as much. But 26-6, the team with more rushing attempts through 2 weeks, right? More rushing attempts than the opponent. The Panthers had 6 more attempts than the Falcons in week 1. So these are the teams. This is for the teams that are the 6 teams that broke the trend. That the team that lost had more rushing attempts than the team that won. The Panthers had 6 more attempts than the Falcons in week 1, but the Falcons ran the ball more than they threw it. They just ran 24 less plays. So that's a way. We'll take that one off. We're not counting that one because clearly the Falcons ran the ball. In week 2, the Texans had 3 more rushes than the Colts. Texans ran 23 more plays. The Colts did 10 more pass plays than runs. Had 10 more pass plays than runs. The Texans had 21. So clearly the metric is the Colts still ran the ball more. So it's in there. And these are bad teams. And bad teams kind of mess up these trends as well. The Lions had 2 more rushes than the Seahawks in week 2. The Lions turned the ball over 3 times. The Browns had 14 more carries than the Steelers in week 2. They had 4 turnovers, 2 turning into defensive touchdowns. If you turn the ball over, it doesn't matter how well you run the ball. You're going to lose games. Also, the Cardinals had 2 more rushes than the Giants in week 2. Saquon Barkley gets hurt in that game. The Giants would have kept running it, and the Cardinals are just a bad team. So there's really only one game that mocks this trend, and it's because of the defense. But it's not because of good defense. It's because of bad defense. And that's the Chargers in week 1. And that the fact that they never figured out or they never changed what they were doing to adapt to how Miami was destroying them through the air. So clearly the Chargers ran the ball more. Miami was just dominating them through the air. Chargers never adapted to Miami's passing game. They end up losing that game. So I get you want to pass the ball. 26-6 when you run the ball more than your opponent. Now let's look at if you run the ball more than you pass the ball. 16-1 are teams in the first 2 weeks who run the ball more than they passed it. More run plays than pass plays. And we're not even counting in short passing. 16-1. You know that one loss? That's that Chargers game. The one where Brandon Staley should be fired for. The one that Brandon Staley shouldn't have a job anymore. They could have beat Miami. I know that offense looked electric, but it helps when you're playing man coverage and they're getting beat. So 16-1 for teams that had more rushing attempts and passes through 2 weeks. So if you in the first 2 weeks of the season, 16-1 if you ran the ball more than you passed it. And if you want to say it's all just because of because teams are running away with it, Jacksonville scored 14 points in the fourth quarter in week 1. They ran the ball more than they passed it. Las Vegas won by 1 in week 1. Ran the ball more than they passed it. The Jets ran the ball more than they passed it. Win the game in week 1 on the last play. Atlanta scores 13 points in the fourth quarter in week 2. They win that game. Run the ball more than they pass it. You got to run the ball. You have to run the ball. There is no two ways about this. You have to be able to run the ball. If you want to go the other way, if you say, man, you're crazy, passing does it. The teams in the first 2 weeks who have had 10 more passes than runs. So any team who has passed the ball 10 more times than rushing attempts, 10 more passing attempts than rushing attempts, are 6-20 in the first 2 weeks. This will even out some throughout the season as teams start to get better, a better connection with their players. Some of those stats will even out a little bit. It won't be so egregious that it's 16-1 and 6-20. It'll even out a little bit. And I'm not saying you should always run the ball more than you pass it, because that's a full Aaron's too. The concept is that you have to run the ball and you have to have balance in your game. If you try to always throw the ball like the Vikings are trying to do this year, where they got rid of Dalvin Cook and they said, screw it, we're only going to pass, they're going to lose a lot of games this year. That's a dumb way to play football, is to tell your opponent in the scouting report, we don't do one thing. Go ahead and set up your defense. We don't care. We're going to beat it. You have to be able to run the ball. You have to set up a run early in the game. You need balance throughout the game. And I will tell you what I like about this, about Sark's games, about Sark's game plans. Texas, week 1, 39 rushes, 36 passes. Week 2, 37 rushes, 38 passes. Week 3, 31 rushes, 21 passes. Sark is balanced. Now, that last week, it was a bit more rush than pass because Quinn wasn't feeling it. I like it right there in that right where it's close. Can I tell you 16-1? 2 of those teams, Tampa Bay and Miami, had the same number of carries and passes. So you could say 18-1 if we want to change the stat to say equal or greater than rushes. It's 18-1 in that. But it's balance. And the more you want to be sexy and the more you want to throw the ball all the time and the more you want to make it the highlight play, the more you are gambling with your team's ability and your team's future, your team's chances to win. You are gambling. That's all you're doing. You are gambling because you're saying, I would rather take a 10% chance that this works than take a 50% chance that I know I can run the ball, that I can build this. And I may not be hitting it early. I may not be hitting my runs constantly, but I need to keep doing it. And if I'm trying to run up the A gap and the B gap and it's not working, let me try and run it the outside. Okay, if that's not working, let's try some delays. All right, that's not working, let's try some stuff. Let's try as many things as we can because I have to figure out a way to run the ball. I have to be able to run the ball. And this is any football. Now, I'm telling you NFL stats because it's a lot easier to populate NFL stats than it is to put together everyone in college football, even top 25. There's been 32 games played, so I can tell you out of 32 games, 26-6, teams who run the ball more than the teams who run the ball more have won. There's going to be a little bit of statistics in that because if you're winning, if you got a big lead, you're going to run the ball more. It may not be your basis, it may not be how your game plan always, but you have to be able to run the ball in football. And Sark this year isn't worried, isn't trying to go into it thinking, well, I have my superheroes and Bijan and Roschon who can come in at the end and they'll solve all of our problems. He's not thinking that. He says, all right, let's balance it out because I don't know if I have a superhero in Jonathan Brooks or CJ Baxter. When you go to the NFL and you worry about the Panthers and you look at the Texans, what are they doing? Well, they have offensive coordinators who think that Dameon Pierce, that Miles Sanders, that their run game was going to bail out their quarterback. And they put no effort into it. They just said, it'll be there. Let's get our quarterback ready. And that's it. That's my brand new toy. That's my brand new toy I want to work with. And we'll figure out the run game. We'll figure that out because we got Dameon Pierce on the Texans. We'll figure that one out. I want to play with my brand new toy. I want to go play with CJ Stroud, and we're going to try and get him as many passing attempts as we can. And what does it get you? Nothing, because you can't run the football. And you got a good running back, and you got multiple good running backs, but you get away from it so quick because you try and make CJ Stroud do something, and then you're behind the chains, and then you run, and then it's 3rd and 7. And when I got to pass, you can't run the ball on 3rd and 7. Well, why do you want me to run the ball more? I'm getting 3rd and 7. 3rd and 7's your fault. You have to be able to run the ball. You have to be balanced. Sark, what I appreciate the most about what he is doing this year in his play calling is that he is balancing it out. Mid-range game, deep balls, running the ball, creating screen passes, all of these things. He's balancing them and doing the juggling act to create a way that Texas will be able to continue to find ways to win. Find your hot hand because you're balancing everything. And okay, we got to go a little stronger here or a little stronger here. You have to be able to run the ball to win in football. It is the case. I know they make you want to think that it doesn't anymore because they don't want to pay the running backs. But that's not the case. You have to run the ball. You just do. The stats will tell you. It'll even out a little bit throughout the year. The stats will tell you. Run the damn football. The late, great DKR told you. There's 3 things that can happen when you throw the ball, and 2 of them aren't good. You have to be able to run the ball. I like that Sark is doing it. I like that there's balance. I like that there's hope. For some of you guys out there with the 0 losses, I'm with you. I think there may be one. But I'm at 1 loss this year for Texas. I don't know where it's coming, but I'm with 1. We're going to give you up to the Rangers. We appreciate everybody on the text line, lifeblood of the show. Appreciate you following us online for the Big Fat Poll. We'll be back tomorrow, full show, right here on the Sports Complex. So be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow, 5 o'clock, on the Sports Complex on the Horn.